Hello. Today we are learning the last lesson of our chapter, which is about finding the inverse of functions. The first thing that I want you to understand is what this word inverse means. And to help you understand that, I have two example problems down below. And I want you to look at this first problem. And I want you to notice all of the numbers that are in the x column and all of the numbers that are in the y column. Now I want you to look at this problem. Notice how all of the x values are the same as the y values from this problem. These are the same. Similarly, all of the y values are the same as the x values from this problem. So basically, this first equation and the second equation are the same, except that the x's and the y's are switched. That is what an inverse is. It's an equation that switches all of the x's and y's. So let's actually do some of these problems. So question number 1, find the inverse. Whenever you see inverse, I want you to think we need to switch the x's and the y's. So the x's and the y's, we need to switch them. So I'm going to put the x over here and the y over here. I switch the x's and the y's. And now I'm going to focus on getting the y by itself. So to get y by itself, I'm going to start by adding 9 to each side. The 9's cancel. The 4y comes down. And now x plus 9. I can't calculate x plus 9, so I just leave it x plus 9. But remember, we're trying to get the y by itself. So my next step, I'm going to divide by 4. And on the other side, since I have two numbers, I need to divide by 4 2 times. So let's focus on this first part here. X divided by 4. Well, an x always has an invisible 1 in front of it. So I'm going to take 1 divided by 4. And if I do 1 divided by 4 in my calculator, it makes 0.25. We do not want decimals. So instead, I just write 1 over 4x. See how the numbers from right here, I just kept the same? That's what we do if it makes a decimal. So now let's try this 9 divided by 4. If I type that in my calculator, 9 divided by 4, I will get 2.25. Again, we do not want decimals. So we are just going to leave it as 9 over 4. Again, the numbers I have here, I keep here. And that is going to equal y. And I have found my inverse. Let's look at another example. It says, find the inverse. Whenever we see the word inverse, we want to think our x's and y's should switch. But if you look at this problem, there is no y. So what you need to know is that these symbols, f of x mean the same as y. So whenever you see f of x, you can replace it with the letter y. Now I can take my x and my y and I can switch it. So x equals 6y. And now we're going to get the y by itself. So I'm going to divide by 6. Remember, this x has a 1 in front of it. 1 divided by 6 makes a decimal. And we don't like decimals, so I'm just going to leave it 1 over 6x. One last example. Remember, this f of x is the same as a y. And now to find the inverse, I'm going to take x and y and I'm going to switch them. So I'm going to put the x here and the y here. And now I'm going to solve to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5 from each side. So negative y equals x minus 5. And now this negative sign is really like a negative 1. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. And this x has a 1 in front of it. So if I do 1 divided by negative 1, that gets negative 1. So I have negative 1x. And now I'm going to do negative 5 divided by negative 1, which makes positive 5. So I need to put plus 5. And that is my inverse.